Hi everyone, and welcome to the Say As It Is with Pete podcast series. I'm Pete, your host, and each week I will bring you some frank and honest conversations covering various topics from learning and development, apprenticeships, funding, HR, strengths, recruitment, ESG, well-being, ED&I, employability, and much, much more. So let's get this week's episode underway and say as it is. Hi everybody, welcome to a episode of Say As It Is with Pete, and I'm your host as always, Pete, as we have some frank and honest conversations around different topics that I discuss. Now, I have been quiet for a while, so I do apologise because I have been getting hounded quite a bit from people. But there's been lots of things happening at work. I've been travelling between the UK and the Netherlands. Lots of things have been going on in my day-to-day life and work life, and it's just been manic and chaotic. I've not had the time to sit and record some episodes. So now I'm kind of getting a little bit quiet. I can start catching up on some episodes. So be prepared for episodes in parts 1s and 2s. Be prepared for bonus episodes because there's a lot to come, and there's a lot that I've been wanting to crack on with, really. So in this week's episode, there's something that's been coming up quite a lot. Now, I'm not into conspiracy theories or anything like that. I love hearing them because sometimes I think some people are really out there with their conspiracy theories, and some are kind of logical and make sense, and others are just completely out of this world. So one thing I do want to talk about, and I've seen this a lot, and it's kind of bugging me at the moment, and I just want to get it out there and just say it because there's so many bits of miscommunication going around that it's causing kind of panic between friends and family, and it's causing panic for kids and young people because people are talking about it, but no one's really actually talking about it and really saying what it's about. So it's all kind of misinformation. So for example, I saw recently on some Instagram posts and some Facebook posts about McDonald's closing in the US, and this one woman saying, oh my god people, it's 2024 and by the end of 2024 there will be no more McDonald's in the US of A. Oh my god people, I'm just passing this information out. You know, hello, I'm just telling you, but McDonald's is going under, and McDonald's has gone into administration, so, oh my god, no more McDonald's. Misinformation. So it's caused up a bit of a stir, really, about McDonald's. So just as a heads up, McDonald's isn't going under. McDonald's isn't in administration or in liquidation, and no, my favourite triple cheeseburger, McChicken sandwich with no lettuce and cheese, my large fries and my apple pie are still going to be there. So now you know what I ordered from McDonald's. It's still going to be there. It's just that McDonald's have decided to restructure again. So for example, McDonald's have decided again to restructure, streamline, close a majority of its offices within the US and kind of shrink it into one office if it can, and kind of make the process a little bit more streamlined. They're not innovating in anything new at the moment, they're just streamlining, and a lot of companies are doing that, and they're just evolving with the times. So yes, there will be some layoffs at head office, but the stores are not going anywhere. The stores are still there. So people need to calm down because it's misinformation and people aren't talking about it. People are just going off snippets and things and not looking or researching, and then it all blows up out of proportion. So this is one of the topics I want to talk about at the moment, is why are the UK government asking people to stock up on food? Now, I've heard all sorts of conspiracy theories on this, and I just want to clear it up because I think people are just overreacting. You know, get some common sense, research and find out. So I've done my own little research on this. So the reason why the UK government is urging the public to stockpile on essential supplies like tin food, bottled water and other emergency items are for a few key reasons. So it's to enhance the national resilience against potential emergencies and crises. It's also the government's new Prepare website, which highlights risks such as biosecurity threats. It could be flooding, power cuts, cyber attacks, or even another pandemic. Don't worry, there's no more pandemics yet. Give it another 100 years or so, we hope. But also, stocking up on supplies would help households cope with at least 3 days if such events or disrupts happen in services. 2, it's also to reduce the strain on emergency services during a crisis. So by having the basic stockpile households, can be self-sufficient for a short period, allowing emergency responders to prioritise the most vulnerable. So over 40%, and this is interesting, over 40% of the UK homes currently stock or lack a stock of 3 days worth of supply of essentials. So 40% of the UK doesn't have enough supplies for 3 days, and I'll come on to that in a moment. Point 3 is that as a sensible precaution, not to panic buy. And we all know that happened in the pandemic, right? So we all knew in the pandemic, everybody brought toilet rolls and pasta for some bizarre reason, and the shops were empty, and it just caused a backlog, right? So we got to not panic buy. So the Deputy PM, Oliver Dowland, stressed this is about sensible safeguards, not stockpiling, and providing practical information based on the National Risk Register. And number 4, the model preparedness for future emergency. So it's getting you ready just in case. So the campaign includes plans for a large-scale pandemic situation, but also it will look at how this is done, but also the recommended emergency kit includes at least 3 litres of water per person per day, tinned food, which we'll go on to later, and a can opener, obviously, first aid supplies, battery power. So I'll go on to some of the other bits in the moment, but the aim is to empower households to withstand short-term disruptions until everything resumes as normal, and we can get back out there. And I say this because, look, the reason why the government have done this is because of the pandemic. Now, we know until, I think it's like 2025 or 2026, we find out all the findings from the pandemic inquiry, and they're still going. And look, there will be another episode on this, because I did this a while back and I didn't record the episode, but I think it's now time to record it and to put it out. But there are findings from the pandemic, and we need to do this. So the government have looked at this and gone, well, actually, when we put everybody in lockdown in March 2020, nobody was prepared for that. Nobody. Barely anybody had enough food or stock or supplies in. And then when we were told that the shops would reopen, probably about within a week of going into lockdown, and we could only, queue against 2 meters, and everybody was stockpiling, it was just an absolute chaotic nightmare. Yeah, there were shortages of supplies, from toilet roll to pasta to toiletries to everything, because everybody was stockpiling when really the shops were open as normal, but it was obviously a reduced number of people go into a shop. It could only be that you had to keep 2 meters. There were then limitations on what you could buy, because people were just buying too much. And I remember looking on Instagram and Facebook and everywhere else, and people were happily saying, look at the amount of pasta and toilet roll and all of this I have, and cooking oil, I can survive. Way too much, like way over. And I even know some people that did that, and they still today have got it. And they've not needed to buy anything for a good few years because they stockpiled way too much. But I get what the government are saying, and the website, I'll put it in the bio as well, the website for the government's Prepare campaign is called prepare-campaign.gov.uk, and the website is just about how would you prepare for an emergency. So it says emergencies such as floodings, fires, power cuts can affect us all. There is a simple and effective steps you can take to be more prepared. So if an emergency did happen in your area, how would you manage? Okay, what about your relatives, your friends, your neighbours, your colleagues? Do you know anyone who might need some extra support, from people with disabilities, all sorts? So it says the information on this site is designed to help people prepare for emergencies, be more informed about hazards, and get involved in activities to support yourself and your community before, during, and after an emergency. So there is also specific advice for disabled persons and carers. So taking action now will not only be easier to manage if an emergency does happen. So it's really informative. It's got lots of information on there, and you should read it. There's things about, alerts and warnings, coping with trauma, and transport disruptions and delays. So I would say take a good look at it. It's a really interesting read. But also, what are the essential items that the UK government are urging people to stock up on? Well, you'd be surprised. They do give you some really useful information. So when I looked at this, it was saying that the UK government is urging the public to stock up on the following essential items as part of the emergency readiness kit. So kind of what you need, really. So they're talking about bottled water. So they say that a minimum of 3 litres per person per day of drinking, with 10 litres recommended for cooking and hygiene needs as well. So if you haven't got any water, etc. Now we've seen this recently with this bug in the water in his Dorset or Devon, or where it is, where people have not had access to water because of the bugs. Because obviously the release of what they released into the water system, and it caused a bug which caused diarrhea sickness, and then they've had to flush the system, do everything else, and nobody had any bottled water or anything. So bottled water, so again, the minimum of 3 litres per person per day of drinking water, and 10 litres recommended for cooking and hygiene reasons. So non-perishable foods like tinned meat, vegetables, fruit, and a tin opener. Yes, a tin opener, people. Get a manual one, it's easier. Are recommended, but you need enough for at least 3-day supplies. To be honest, I would say between 3 to 7 days, because you don't know how long it will take for services to get up again and how long it will take shops to reopen. So say 3 to 7 days supply. So you want a battery-powered or wind-up torches and radios, along with spare batteries, to have light and receive updates during power cuts. Also, first aid kit, because you may need it. Make sure you've got paracetamol and all those kind of things in there. Also, hand sanitizer and wet wipes. Also, baby supplies like formula, diapers if needed, if you've got kids or babies. Pet food if applicable. Copies of important documents like insurance policies in a waterproof bag, so insurance policies, ID, those kind of things. And then also pencil, paper, a penknife, a whistle. Also think about spare keys for your home and a car, if you have one, and then spare glasses and contact lenses. So the government stresses this is about having sensible safeguards in place, and to have supplies for at least 3 days, or I would say 7, at home in case of emergencies like power cuts, floods, cyber attacks, or another pandemic. Not panic stockpiling like people did in the pandemic. So the aim is to enhance the national resilience and reduce strain on emergency services during these crises. And I would fully agree. So, there is that thing of thinking about, look, that's what they're suggesting, and it's nothing bad. It's sensible, really. We should do, because none of us were prepared for the pandemic in no way, shape or form, and then we all went out rushing and stockpiling because in that first cut down we were told, oh my god, you're not going, everything's closing, that's it. We didn't know who could go to work, who couldn't go to work, frontline services, which emergency services had to work. Then we told shops could open, and it slowly got there. But it's, to be honest, I'm in full agreement with this campaign. This Prepare campaign is perfect because it's preparing us just in case. Okay, just in case. It's not to say it's going to happen, but it's just in case something did happen. So, going through this a little bit more, when I was looking at this, you got to think that the main reason behind the UK government urging people to stock up on wind-up torches, candles and other emergency supplies is to prepare us and prepare households for potential power cuts and disruptions to digital communications. Okay, so for example, if you've got a power outage caused by extreme weather events or cyber attacks or a strain on the emergency grid during high demand periods, wind-up torches and candles would provide light sources and sources during blackouts. And also having a radio is pretty good because you obviously can get updates of what's going on. Also, disruptions to internet and mobile networks, leaving households without digital communication. So battery-powered radios are recommended to receive emergency updates. So it's pretty good to have one. And then other potential emergencies like pandemics, natural disasters, or security threats that could disrupt basic utilities and services for a period. So by having emergency supplies like toiletries, torches, radios and first aid kits and non-perishable foods and water on hand, households can be self-sufficient for at least 3 to 7 days. I say 7, government says 3, until services are restored or assistance arrives. So this reduces strain on the emergency responders, which is right, and it should do. So the push is part of the government's new Prepare campaign, like I said, and its resilience framework to enhance the national pre-readiness after lessons from the COVID-19 pandemic. So it aims to provide practical advice to the public on stockpiling essentials as sensible safeguarding measures, okay, against disruptions or panic buying. So it's to stop that panic buying scenario. So if you have that stock now, you've got it, so you don't have to rush out and panic buy, because you've got enough toilet roll, water, food, you've got wind-up torches, radios, spare batteries, you've got everything you need. Perfect, right? It's like a mini shopping list. You don't have to buy all of it now and rush out and buy it, but you can, depending on your finances and your budget, you can buy some now, some next month, so you can just keep buying as you go, or what you need to do. You could obviously buy online and have it home delivered. But obviously the wind-up torches, wind-up radios and stuff, and batteries, there's going to be a lot of high demand for it now. So yeah, the government are telling us now, so people are going to obviously now go out and buy them. I've got wind-up torches already. I've always had a wind-up torch. Absolutely love it. It takes about 5 minutes of a good wind-up for a good hour or so of battery, of light, I should say. But, I have it because I've needed it sometimes in a power cut. Happy days. But it's worth having. But also, in essence, wind-up torches, as I say, are recommended supplies which allow households to maintain basic lighting, communications and sustenance for a short period during a crisis, and may temporarily as a crisis may temporarily cripple power grids, internet and other communications may disappear. So having radios and those kind of things are important. And I think, look, when this came out, everybody was panicking and screaming and worried about, oh my God, what's going to happen? We've got stuff going on in Israel and Gaza. We've got stuff going on in Ukraine. We've got all sorts going on, and people thinking, oh my God, what's happening? So everybody panics. Guys, stop. Deep breath. Breathe. Take 5. This is coming out solely from previous floods we've had. The pandemic. There's been power outages, where there's been water supply issues due to, as I say, contamination of the water supplies, where there's been harmful bugs in the water. So it's important to have all this information, to have this prepared and ready to go. So stop panicking. Just build yourself a resilience. So in case another pandemic happens, hopefully it doesn't, in case there's a flood, in case there's emergencies, in case something happens, then you've got enough supplies at home to survive. So toiletries, so toothpaste, toilet rolls, shower gel, if needed, soap. We don't necessarily shower gel, but soap as well. Make sure you've got enough washing up liquid. Make sure you've got all the essentials you need. So you've got food, you've got water, obviously the main things, and you've got what you need to survive. Yeah. Because it will be needed, and sometimes you can, you just have to do it. So you just look at that and see what you can do. But go to the prepare-campaign.gov.uk. Link is in the bio. Have a read of the website. Have a good look. It's really, really interesting when you're clicking on through, and it tells you all sorts of things. About what you can look at, what risks there are. How to deal with things, how to deal with like droughts and fires in the home, flooding, hot weather and heat waves, all sorts of things, phone and broadband outages, power cuts, what to do in storms, what to happen with the water supply interruptions or outages, what to deal with when there's a terror attack. So it's got lots of information in there. So it's very informative, and I really suggest having a look at it and reading it. Don't panic. It's always good to be informed, and the more informed you are, the better prepared you are. So yeah, have a look at that. But don't stress, and I've seen this as well, because like one thing I do, and I do go on Pinterest quite a bit, to be honest. But for example, people might want to not only have those stocks and supplies at home, so at least you've got a 3 to 7 day. Now, I keep saying this, government say 3 days. I always think you should have 7, because you should be well prepared. So 7 days of stock, put it somewhere safe in a cupboard, wherever you can find it. That's your stock. Yeah, it's not doomsday, it's not end of the world, it's just your stock of supplies. Obviously keep an eye on expiry dates and things like that. If things are coming to a use by or end date, make sure you use it up and replace it with something else, because the lifespan is quite long. But at least make sure that you're keeping an eye on it, because obviously you don't want to get to an emergency and find out that half the stuff you've got is out of date and you can't use. So things like tin soup, fruits, veg, anything you can get in a tin, perfect. Put it in the cupboard, keep an eye on it. And then every so often, just set your reminder to check the dates, or set a reminder that that's going to go out of date and you've got to use it. So use it if you need to, but obviously replace it. Always good. Okay. But also, one thing, as I was going to say as well, people have said, yes, we have this 3 day or 7 day stockpile of supplies, etc. But also, think about a grab bag. So, as weird as this may sound, think about, some people do this, and again, people say, oh my god, it's doomsday, whatever. Stop it. It's not. It's just being prepared. And look, we've seen this already, where there's been flash floods and people have had to evacuate their homes, leave at a short notice, and they've got nothing with them. The only thing they've got on them is the clothes on their backs. What they're wearing and what they've got is all they've got, right? Everything else they don't have. They don't have anything else, and they have to deal with that. So a good thing to do is have an emergency grab and go bag. Yeah. So in that grab and go bag, you could look at a pen and notepad. You could look at a phone charger and battery pack. You could look at a flashlight and radio, so that can be battery operated and wind up, because you can get both. With the wind up radios, you can get a wind up and battery operated. And I think the same with the torches, you can get just wind up ones, but I know with some wind up radios they can be both wind up or battery operated, so they can have the both. You want a first aid kit. Obviously you want an emergency plan on what you're going to do. You want a whistle. Now, if you know me, I have several whistles. I have a whistle on my work set of keys, I have a whistle on my own keys, and I have a whistle in my bag, because I just do. Think about having spare battery. So in your emergency plan, you may want to think about your IDs, your documents, personal contact details, phone numbers of key people you need to contact. So keep their numbers written down, because if there's an outage of mobile phones or your mobile phone runs out, you can get to a phone box, and you can call them on there as well. So always have a copy of people's names and numbers to call, like an old phone book, right? So as I say, so emergency plans, whistles, batteries. Think about some basic food and water, so water bottle. We've all got them nowadays, but also think about some quick to go foods, so it could be some granola bars, things like that, some essential clothing, and then your personal toiletries. Not too much. Toothbrush, toothpaste, probably deodorant, probably a bit of mouthwash, I don't know, some just basic essentials, and it's a grab to go. When you're thinking of clothing, for example, what I would say is keep it kind of, depends the seasons, but obviously replace the clothing obviously in the seasons. So you've got summer and winter. Make sure you've got some warm clothes as well. But also just think as well with this is that when you're packing, and there's some great videos on YouTube about how to roll pack, and how people pack in the army, and the way the guys pack in the army is perfect. And I that's how I pack all my suitcases, is I roll fold everything, and it fits a lot more in my suitcase, trust me. But again, just think about some clothing you need, like a pair of socks. You might take 2 or 3 pairs of socks. They can last a couple of days. can wear them for a couple of days. Yeah, I know it doesn't sound hygienically, but in a sudden emergency, what are you going to do? So you might find that one pair of socks lasts 3, maybe 4 days before you need to change it. It might be that you take a couple of t-shirts and you can wear them for a couple of days. Obviously take enough underwear that you need for at least a week, because obviously you can wash it and dry it out and stuff. But also just think as well about kind of what you need, because it's to grab and go. Yeah. Look at a mini first aid kit. As I say, you've got torches, you've got a portable radio. You've got to say, if you can, make sure the bag is waterproof. Any prescriptions or medications you need, make sure you've got them. I know some people order the medication. Guys, if you can order your medication, like I get mine home delivered for my condition. So normally I've got like 6 months worth of stock. So as long as you've got a good stock, take what you need. If it's 1 or 2 bottles, make sure you've got basic toiletries. Again, if you've got babies and stuff, make sure you've got some nappies and bits and pieces. Think about bottled water. So if you've got a stockpile of water already, tend to use that. Use your some tin food or some basic food you can go with you. As I say, a bit of clothing, mobile and a charger. Take a notepad and pen, also a list of contact numbers and names. Food, bottles and toys if you can take them for the kids to keep them happy, and just create yourself a little checklist. So there are things as well. So I will include some additional informations of things that you can do in events of emergencies and stuff. But to be honest, a lot of people are thinking, oh my god, why are you doing this? Why is this all coming out now? Guys, again, this is just because the government wants to make us more prepared. They learned from the pandemic that we was not prepared. If you think, during the pandemic, how many of you had enough food and water and stuff in the house? Not a lot of us. So they're just preparing us, okay, to say if something was to happen again, you've got what you need. You're not pulling on emergency services or anything like that, but you've got enough stock and supply. That's how it should be. Right, and I totally get it. We should have enough food in the house for 3 to 7 days. Now, I will come on to that in a moment, because there's something that is really bugging me about this as well, which I really want to I have to say soon. But just make sure you've got it, and buy it over a couple of days or over a couple of weeks or a couple of months. Just have that kind of stuff ready. Don't go out and rush and panic buy, because there's no point. But this is to stop that panic buying scenario like we saw in the pandemic with the toilet rolls and the pasta and the water and everything else and the cooking oil. It's just to say, yeah, I'm ready. So if something happens, okay, we're great, we're all settled, we've got enough for 3 to 7 days, we're all good. If there is flooding or an emergency in the home and you have to leave straight away, you've got your grab bag, you can go, you've got your essentials there, you're done. Yeah, absolutely perfect. Now, the one thing that is really bugging me with all of this is that's the government's guidelines. Absolutely love it. But as we know, and I think we all know this, look at the poverty line. The poverty line is getting worse and worse, and there are lots of families that can barely have enough food for a week. And there's more and more families going to using the food banks. So old age pets, so OAPs, families, even some single people that are on really low incomes that can't afford anything or struggling and can't find work, etc., are going to food banks on a weekly basis. And there's only so much that you can get. So it's hard, and that food keeps that family going for a week. Yeah. So, food banks are still around, and they are being heavily utilised by people a lot. And luckily, I know the King has offered to supply more and more freezers to food banks, so they can help keep food longer and freeze it and everything else, which is brilliant, and I love that investment. But we've got to think that the poverty line, some families can't afford to stockpile on things like this, and to buy these extra items is a challenge. So I think, yes, I love the idea of the government saying this, and there are some households that can do it, but there are other households that are on that poverty line that can't do this. So I think the government need to come up with something, and need to create some sort of emergency response kit or system to support people. So I may create a campaign on petitions for the government to say you need to support people on the breadline, or on the poverty line with this, because this is not fair. Because in an emergency like another pandemic, floods, those kind of things, these people are not going to have the essentials that the government are asking them to have, and that's not fair. So some people might reach out to charities and say, look, What are you doing to help? You know, so and that, I think that's one of the things about this as well on this Prepare campaign website. It's talk about how you can volunteer and support your community. I get it, but also I think the government needs to do something as well, because you know, if you've got a family that are struggling for ends meet at the end of the day, or a single mum or dad that is struggling to feed their kids, and they're missing, you know, 2-3 meals a week so that they kids can have enough to eat and drink and provide them with what they need for subsistence, you know, and they're barely getting through. How are we expecting them to cope in a pandemic or a flood or an emergency or a blackout or a crisis? Some people can't even afford enough money to put on their gas and electric. So it's a tough one, but you know, if anybody's got any thoughts or ideas from listening to this episode of how that could be tackled, you know, feel free to put it in the comments. Feel free to reach out to me. You know, follow me on LinkedIn. Follow me. You know, pop me a message. I'd love to hear from you. But I think the government need to look at this a little bit more. And you know, again, people, don't panic. There's nothing to worry about. This is just the government's findings to say, okay, we weren't prepared in the pandemic. We didn't have enough PPE, so we didn't have face masks, although there were some really creative ways of people wearing face masks. I spent most of the pandemic making and selling face masks. So I didn't make a lot from it, but I was selling face masks and I enjoyed doing it, so it kept me busy. But there wasn't enough face masks, so people had to make them. There wasn't enough PPE, and even the PPE that was got was not effective enough. There were, you know, delays in food orders going, like, you know, supplies getting to shops. There wasn't enough people able to get out to shops. There were too many vulnerable people at home, especially vulnerable people. If you know vulnerable people at home, help them stockpile, help them have that supply in the house so they've got it if they need it, because, you know, until a social bubble is created or until people can get to them, they haven't got enough there. But if they've got those basic supplies in based on their needs, then if something happens, you know that they're safe because they've got that supply in place in case of that emergency, and they're okay. Yeah, so if you can't get to them, or the emergency services can't get to them for 3 or 4 days or even 7 days, they've got stock and supply to keep them going. So think about that as well. But yeah, I think, you know, a lot of people do overreact to these kind of things, and you know, I've seen it. I love the conspiracy theories, as I said. People, calm the fuck down. It's not a conspiracy theory. There's nothing going on out there. It's just the government saying, we realised from the pandemic, from COVID-19, that we were not prepared as a nation, and lots of homes were not ready. And even if there's still 40%, and to be honest, I'm one of those 40%. I'm in that 40% bracket that is not prepared. And I need to get prepared. So, you know, look, I know what I've got to do. I've got my little plan to stock up and get ready. So it's going to take me, I'm not going to buy everything in one go. I'll buy some, you know, as and when I need over the next couple of months, just to prepare myself. But all is good. So I'd say don't worry about it. Have a read of the website. It's better to be informed and know what to do than not know what to do. So have a read of it, look at it, and this is the same as I train my staff on kind of act awareness training with the counter-terrorism police, but we also do run, hide, tell training, what to do in the event of either a terror attack, gun attack, or knife attack. So we teach our team members what to do, and it's better for them to be informed and prepared than not be informed or prepared at all. Yeah, so the more you're informed, the better prepared you are, and that's all this is. So people, whoever listens to this and is overthinking, over panicking, stop it. This is just to make sure that you're prepared in case we go into another lockdown. That's really it. Think of it that way. And I had this conversation with somebody I know the other day, and she found it really useful and was like, okay, actually that now makes sense to why they're doing it, because there's so much misinformation. I'm confused. So look, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here because I think you know, we only need about 30 minutes on this. So look, if you found this useful, please share it with other people. If you want to discuss on this topic even more, reach out to me and I'm happy to get you onto a second episode around this topic. But as I say, the information is out there. You can go to prepare-campaign.gov.uk where everything is there. I'll put the link in my bio. Just make sure that you can also follow Protect, which is another website from the counter-terrorism website, and it's called protectuk.police.uk. So that's protectuk.police.uk. That gives you extra information. You know, especially on Martin's Law. It gives you the updated current threat level. But it also gives you information on, there's like learning, so there's some e-learning, there's some act awareness training, there's some great information on there what to do there's like faith security training on there now. There's also things about, if there's threats or risks in schools, and you can teach your kids some stuff as well. There's some guidelines, resources. It's all really good information, and again, it's more about being prepared and aware. So the more you're informed, the better prepared you are. So I'll put those links in the bio. As I say, share this episode with anyone that you think may be interested. Please comment as well. Reach out if you want to talk about this more, or you want to join on an episode to discuss this further. But I hope you found this interesting. I hope it's cleared up a little bit more about this 3-day stockpile situation. But guys, please do not overreact. Just do your bit of research first, okay? Find out more what's going on before you start panicking and getting miscommunication. So if anybody's telling you anything that's not right, you now have the right information. So I hope I provided that for you. Again, guys, thank you so much for listening and tuning in. And as I say, there'll be more episodes coming over the next couple of weeks. Now I'm able to focus more time on this and get back on track with my episodes. But have a great week, whatever you're doing. Remember, you are amazing. And remember to keep smiling where you can. And don't take life too seriously, and don't get stressed. What you don't get done today, you can certainly get done tomorrow. So guys, remember, you can always go back and listen to this episode and previous episodes of Say It Is with Pete via rss.com, Apple Music, Amazon, Spotify, and wherever you get this episode from. So guys, enjoy your week, and I shall catch up with you soon.